G'day battlers, and today we're going to be checking out the Indonesian qualifiers with a run from RifqiAditya23 with Corviknight. And I'm not, this isn't a case where Corviknight is just sort of around. Rifqi said Corviknight was their MVP and they bring it every single round. And so we're going to see a lot of Corviknight action today, and so I'm really excited to sort of shine that spotlight not only on Corviknight, but also on the Indonesian region, because this is their path to the World Championships. Top 16 from the qualifier stage go to a playoffs, and then the top 2 from the playoffs will get that World Championship invite. And so Rifqi putting himself in a really strong position as the #1 seed, coming out with a 7-0 sweep. So really exciting to see, and really excited to see these battles. So you can see the team in the bottom right hand corner. We've got the Corviknight, the Power Gem Sableye, Credilli, Diggersby, Azumarill, and the Shadow Drapion. Corviknight is running the Ironhead Sky Attack moveset, the sort of, standard Open Great League moveset. There's a bit more debate on that Sableye. I saw a lot of differences, a lot of Dazzling Gleams, and a lot of Power Gems going through the Atlanta Regional Championships. We'll see where that does sort of end up in the overall conversation, but here we are running that Power Gem. And so I should actually probably mention as well, this is actually the second round. His first round opponent, you can see the team over there, it was running like a Megahorn Clodsire, and so I sort of decided we'll skip round 1 and we'll go straight into round number 2 up against JustJJJJJJJJJ, who went 5-2 in this tournament. And so, I guess I just wanted to highlight that in round number 2, we're already up against really strong opponents. This guy does end up going 5-2. So really, really powerful, and a really interesting team, to be honest with you, with Triple Waters. The Jellicent, Azumarill, and Gastrodon really feels like it provides Credilli quite an opening in this particular matchup. But worth noting, I think JustJJJ has maybe 3 Pokemon of interest. One is the Azumarill, because it looks relatively safe into Rifqi's team, as long as you can avoid the Credilli. But even if you find the Credilli, you've still got access to Ice Beam. So I think Azumarill is quite an interesting Pokemon. I guess there is a spoiler on the screen, and that they do bring the Malamar, which can be quite an interesting Pokemon, and definitely gives you some pretty good coverage into that Credilli, if you do end up finding it. And then I think Morpeko is the third Pokemon that I'm really seeing as, as long as you aren't against that Diggersby, Morpeko is going to be really tough to fight against. And it is a Psychic Fangs Morpeko, so it isn't the, the Yetaruna moveset that we saw with Seed Bomb. So this is going to be an interesting team to play around. I really don't think that you can bring Gastrodon when there is a Credilli guaranteed to come. But let's jump into battle number 1 in the Indonesian qualifiers in round number 2. See how we go. It is actually the Credilli into the Malamar matchup, and so JJ is absolutely this is where they want their Malamar to be. They want it to take on this Credilli so they can keep whatever they've got in the back nice and safe. And so, if you're Rifqi, you kind of want to keep this Credilli safe, because you think there's going to be waters in the back. Gets the Rock Tomb landing, but unfortunately, it looks like maybe tried to swap, but gonna have to eat a superpower before dipping with a move, which could be pretty handy. And JJ makes a really good play here, bringing in the Azumarill. So obviously that's the counter to Sableye, so it makes sense. But more importantly, I think you're bringing in the Azumarill into a matchup that isn't the Credilli, and so that maybe they aren't running double water in the back. Hopefully they aren't. You're actually able to maneuver around it so that you can use up your Azumarill in a decent matchup here. And actually letting all of the health just drain away as well. Really nice attempt from Rifqi to throw the move, but JJ staying on top of it, swaps into the Morpeko, actually does shield that up. And so no more shields in play, but this Morpeko is going to be so dangerous now. The Aura Wheel takes out Credilli. Sableye doesn't have any energy, and Corviknight is going to get taken out by an electric. Oh no, hang on. We swap into the Sableye, and so Morpeko is going to take out Sableye. It's going to go back to the electric form, full belly form of Morpeko, which means that the electric type Aura Wheel is going to come through. Maybe you have to come in Corviknight there, and try and eat a dark type Aura Wheel, and then try and go from there. But yeah, unfortunately, game 1, it does actually go to JJ, and so going to have to reverse sweep in the back. And so Shadow Drapion going into the Malamar. Obviously not an awesome matchup for the Drapion. You can see how much damage the superpower does, and catching an Aqua Tail into the Azumarill. I mean, JJ is playing so well. Rifqi is really going to have to adapt, and fast. This time, they do actually get the counter swap. They've got the sort of, I guess, not necessarily switch advantage. I guess it is switch advantage. And so, able to land the Credilli onto the Azumarill, gets that Grass Knot in, and eats an Ice Beam. You can eat 1, you cannot eat 2, but Credilli will outpace the Azumarill to the move, and even gets that extra Bullet Seed in. So this Grass Knot is going to be more than enough to KO. Malamar, okay, we're going to see the Morpeko come back in here, and a Rock Tomb coming in from the Credilli. This makes some sense, because, at some point, I mean, the Morpeko is very likely to shield. It's a very frail Pokemon, Morpeko going to throw the charge attack just before Credilli gets to the charge attack. Psychic Fangs, all it's going to need to take it down. And now the Diggersby comes in. Now, this is sort of dangerous for Rafki. Okay. Nice call there. Nice bait, I suppose, with the Psychic Fangs. But now your Electric type Aura Wheel is going to do nothing. And so Rafki can actually really comfortably just sit there, tank the move, and get up to the Scorching Sands. So this is, I guess, the downside of Morpeko in some senses, is that sometimes you can really get stuck and you just don't have anything to throw until you throw 2 charge attacks. Rafki is able to shield up the correct move, and then Morpeko swapped forms, and so we did double swap Malamar into the Drapion. Throws the superpower and debuffs itself, which means that this Scorching Sand is going to come through, not quite getting the KO. Ooh, okay, I think Diggersby does survive here because that superpower, the first one went through debuffing Malamar's attack, so that one doesn't quite do enough damage, which means Diggersby barely gets in here, gets that Scorching Sands, and a much, still a tight game, but does get the win in game number 2. Game number 3 is the same lead as game number 2, that Drapion into the Malamar. Hopefully, Rafki is hoping to avoid getting that Aqua Tail caught onto the Azumarill this time. We'll see how it goes. Foul play bait coming through as well, but Rafki does sort of stay strong, lets it go. Throws the crunch here, and we are seeing Malamar getting very low, and so Rafki decides to use the Protect Shield here. That Malamar was not debuffed, and so again, we're actually going to see the Azumarill swap in, Credilli going to swap in to meet it. And so we are in this pretty advantageous position here. Credilli has a lot of energy ready to go. We're still 1 Bullet Seed away from the second Grass Knot. And you sort of have to wonder what is going to be in the back. And I think the logical guess is that it's going to be the Morpeko again. And because you've got this Diggersby in your sort of lineup, you're kind of like, hey, I could probably play this pretty similar to that last one. He does let the Credilli go this time. And I actually quite like this play because you've got so much energy on this Drapion and it's got such neutral damage as well. You can actually reliably take out the Azumarill there with no shield. Oh, but it's actually the Jumpluff in the back. Okay, Diggersby doesn't love this matchup as much. And so this Drapion is so much more important. JJ might not know it, but man, he needed to shield here because not only does the defense debuff go through, but look how low this Jumpluff is. We're actually going to be able to just, I think, fast move all the way down here, which could have been, I guess it is double flying moveset, isn't the Energy Ball Jumpluff? So I guess it isn't as bad as I was sort of thinking it was, to be honest with you. But the Fire Punch is going to go through, get that shield, and then we just need to get to one more here. And this is GG's. Rafki taking it back in round number 2. Really exciting to see. But it does mean we're going into round number 3 with a 2-0 record. Again, taking that first round up against VAP82. Now, number 3, we are up against RizkyXaverius, and you can see that I've got, their score 5-2 with an asterisk next to it. That means that Rizky does qualify for the playoff stage. They're able to fight their way into the top 16 alongside their sort of battle win tiebreaker, which is so cool because it's such an interesting team with a Galarian Moltres, Shadow for Alligator, Clodsire, Claydol, Azumarill, and the Jumpluff. And I'll check my little team notes here. We do have an Aerial Ace Energy Ball Jumpluff. So we do have to actually, respect the Energy Ball this time around. It's a little bit worse for Diggersby, and it is much worse for the Azumarill as well. And it is also the Sludge Bomb Clodsire. It is not the Stone Edge moveset, which, is sort of Corviknight's best case scenario. And so Corviknight maybe didn't, do too much for us in that first round that we saw, but potentially in round 3, it'll have a slightly better time. Pretty decent matchups into the Moltres, to the Jumpluff, decent-ish into the Clodsire as well. You do have the super effective sand attack damage, and, not too bad into the other Pokemon as well. And so I expect it to be a little bit stronger this time around. I guess we'll just have to, wait and see how it does unfold. We actually have the Credilli into the Clodsire in the lead matchup. Not a great lead for Rafki, unfortunately. You can see we have the Corviknight Sableye combo in the back as well. Corviknight, sort of that really bulky Pokemon, while Sableye a little bit squishier and able to get the sort of attack pressure in it getting to its moves so quickly. And so we see the swap into the Sableye after the attack debuff comes through from the Rock Tomb. Earthquake just going to eat it after that debuff, and now you're in a spot where Sableye can comfortably get to 2 foul plays before Clodsire gets to a move, which would be enough to KO. I was thinking we might be going for a really aggressive Shadow Claw down there, but they were going to get to a move. So we see the shield come up from Rizky. We just shield back up in kind, knowing that we'll be able to... Oh, okay, I was going to say knowing we could Shadow Claw down, but Rizky, staying on top of things, swaps aggressively into the Galarian Moltres, but this lets that Credilli come in, throw a Rock Tomb, get a shield, and Rafiki shields here, knowing that they will be able to get to another Rock Tomb, which is definitely going to hurt this Galarian Moltres. Not only that, but it's really going to reduce its sort of prowess as well, and we're always getting to another move, which is kind of a bad case scenario for the Credilli, but now you can actually comfortably bring in the Corviknight. You can tank these charge attacks because they are double debuffed. It's even a Brave Bird. It's resisted. It does nothing. And it looks like we're going for a full sand attack down of a Flyer, which is insane. But you can, again, comfortably take an Ancient Power even here. It is the, Clodsire comes back in, but Corviknight can sand attack it down. That Moltres has like no health in the back, and it is Claydol in the back. And so there is a fair bit of energy on this Corviknight, and so you're able to get 2 Sky attacks. You probably swap into the Sableye here, 0-turn swap, knowing that you can, 0-turn swap, 2 moves, 2 turns to the foul play, and then 1 turn to throw it. As long as you survive 1 Mud Slap, you are GG's. And really good lead in game number 2 with the Sableye into the Claydol. Clodsire swap. Corviknight comes in to meet the Clodsire, and again, Sludge Bomb Clods. This guy is doing absolutely nothing. It is one of those matchups that Rizky is going to have quite an ample opportunity to swap out, and so you have to sort of wonder. Well, you don't really necessarily want to bring that Claydol in because you know that Sableye is going to come to meet it. So I think that Rizky is going to have to hope that they have something in the back that can pivot quite well. Potentially the Feraligatr could actually be a very powerful Pokemon if it was in the back with its ability to get those Hydro Cannon spamming so quickly. It is actually the Galarian Moltres, and so Rafiki swaps into the Credilli. Credilli does actually, I think it outpaces sort of in the long term up against this Galarian Moltres. And so you don't really want to get hit with a Brave Bird if you are the Credilli, but now that Moltres is debuffing itself with the Brave Birds, Rafki's in a really strong position. As soon as that Claydol comes in, I guess, they benefit a little bit because of the switch timer, but Rizky makes a little bit of maybe a bit of an error in letting the clock go down a little bit before swapping in, because it just meant that this Sableye was able to come in so much quicker. To be honest with you, I think it was a lost matchup either way. Even taking a Rock Tomb here, but at this point, you get 1 foul play. It's not going to be quite enough to KO, I don't think, but you do outpace to the second one. You have a shield because you let the first one come through, and so you can comfortably shield, throw the foul play, and this will KO the Claydol. I do like these plays coming in from Rafiki. Definitely, it was a little bit alignment gameplay, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, but hey, sometimes that is the name of the game. And so going into round number 4, we're up against Yerinaah, who again went 5-2. A lot of 5-2 opponents, which really does speak to the strength of the opponents in this Swiss format. And I don't know about you guys, but this isn't an error. I didn't accidentally copy the team graphic. This is like an identical team, just with Shadow Sableye actually being Shadow this time. I mean, it is the Power Gem Sableye as well. And so, it is the mirror match, which is a much more interesting scenario, and it really sort of asks both Rafiki and Yerinaah, do you know your team? Do you understand where your weaknesses are, and do you know how to exploit them? Because you're going to have to fight back. I'm expecting some mirror matches here. If they have the exact same line read, that would be brilliant. But we'll see if we have to see any Corviknight mirror matches. I do think that when you're in these sorts of scenarios, when you have to face a Corviknight, you do need some sort of answer. And I think in some sense, Rafiki's entire team actually does have play into the Corviknight, so he's actually built quite a Corviknight strong team. I know that in Ashton Nash's Corviknight gameplay at the Atlanta Regional Championships, there were a lot of teams that were, just quite weak to the Corviknight. This definitely isn't one of them. So we see the Drapion into the Azumarill in the lead matchup, and we do have the Claydol and the Corviknight in the back. And so as much as Credilli is the Pokemon you'd love to have in this matchup, not bad for the Credilli at all. Gets the Rock Tomb, swaps, and catches the Play Rough into the Corviknight. That is such a brilliant catch. Obviously a really great spot to be in. The Corviknight swapping in from Yerinaah to match it, because Corviknight really works as a sponge. So even though Rafiki was able to get a little bit of energy on that Azumarill, you can just sort of soak it all up relatively easily, and that Rafiki's, whichever Corviknight wins, it's going to be on relatively low health in the back as well, but there's no need to burn Protect Shields here. So there's a lot of bulk sitting on both sides. We do actually bank the move. I really like that play. We do see the Azumarill coming in and catching the crunch, which is, really nicely done by Yerinaah. But it does mean that Corviknight, it may, if it isn't able to do super effective damage in the back, it may be in a bit of strife. Full Poison Sting down. That is actually huge for Rafki here. And so now we're in a position where it's the Drapion in the back. They've, they haven't quite brought identical teams, but these Aqua Tails are really going to add up onto the Drapion. If you're coming into a Drapion that has 2 Aqua Tails banked, a full, 16 turns of advantage, you are in for a bit of a world of hurt. And so actually letting it go here, putting a few more chips on the Credilli. We'll see the Corviknight swap out, and now there is, as we know, there is energy on this Corviknight. There is energy on Rafki's Corviknight. And so you're sort of like, when am I going to deploy that energy? Going for the Rock Tomb, this will get the KO or the last shield. Down goes the Corviknight, and now I suspect that Credilli going to go straight for these Rock Tombs to get as many debuffs onto this Pokemon as possible. Actually, we're going to see the combo play. The Sky Attack now going to come in from the Corviknight into the Drapion, and it actually is enough to KO. Shadow Drapion not able to take that Sky Attack on the chin at all. And so we're going to have to go into game number 2. Rafki up 1-0 with a Shadow Drapion mirror match. Maybe, they've actually leveled out and they've sort of found themselves on equal footing now. We've got the Corviknight and the Credilli hanging out in the back as well. Big knowledge here in that Rafki... Oh, okay. The opposing Drapion going to bank the move, but both of them, again, they're of the same mind. They've brought the same team to this tournament. Both of them swapping into their Corviknight to try and soak some damage. Well, I'm going to be interested to see how those decisions in the lead gameplay affect the matchup. Rafki using the energy, so Drapion is pretty much energy dry, but has a little bit more health, whereas Yerinaah has no health but a move ready to go. And so I think in some sense, it's really going to come down to what Pokemon is in the back. Rafki holding on to this Credilli it is going to be able to tank a move from that Drapion, so it will be able to absorb the energy. It's literally mirror teams. This is actually crazy, but this is huge for Rafki because they're able to get the Iron Head, force a shield out of Yerinaah, and now going to get the KO here against this Corviknight. Again, the Drapion is sitting here on Rafki's side. You almost want to bring it in to try and get an energy advantage, but instead brings in his own Credilli. Looks like we do lose Charge Attack priority, which is pretty big knowledge, especially in a land of Rock Tomb debuffs, because you are always going to be more debuffed than your opponent. Because your opponent gets them through first, your first Rock Tomb is weaker than their first Rock Tomb. Your second Rock Tomb is weaker than their second Rock Tomb. And so you have to make that call, swapping into the Drapion to clear the debuff, recognizing that he had a health in the bank, and so able to come in, throw the crunch, get the last shield, and the debuff apparently as well. And so now going to use this Protect Shield. Again, that Drapion is in the back with energy, but Rafki actually lets this go. Aqua comes through. Credilli now going to have an energy advantage, a shield advantage, and is in a really strong position into that back matchup. There is that tiny bit of health on Corviknight, but, we see, I guess we have to make the call at some point. So the Grass Knot KO's there, and Corviknight comes in. The timer is coming up, and this happens when you've got 3 super bulky Pokemon and debuffs flying around as well. We almost saw timeout strats actually coming through, and I almost wonder, would there have actually been a gameplay? Maybe that was even Yerinaah's thought process, right? Like by bringing in the Credilli instead of the Corviknight, maybe you're kind of like, well, maybe we can get there. But look, Rafki, I guess, proving dominance with that particular team composition. I do like that with the fact that we did see the mirror teams in that final game, even to the lead, both of them in that same mind of instant swapping into the Corviknight. And I think that is really Corviknight's bread and butter, is soaking damage. And so let's see if it continues on into his round 5 matchup up against Bang Bang Bodus 20, running the Annihilate, Alolan Sandslash, Credilli, Shadow Swampert, Azumarill, and Shadow Drapion. And it looks like their opponent here, at this point in the tournament, I think that both battlers are 4-0, and so Bang Bang Bodus does sort of lose these successive rounds from here, but going to this matchup, it is all anyone's game to win. And so this is a very different team to the ones that we've been seeing so far. Swampert provides a little bit more stress than I think of many of the other Pokemon we've seen. It's got access to Sludge, which can really press that Azumarill and also even hit the Credilli. We've got the Hydro Cannons obviously coming out as well, and so you can actually hit the entire team for pretty decent damage. which really forces Rafki to bring in the Credilli. To be honest with you, I think you need to bring the Credilli, and maybe you have to bring some other neutral answers, potentially something like the Sableye, because Sableye also can have pretty decent coverage into like the Annihilate, I suppose. Not too bad gameplay into the A-Slash or the Credilli, but we'll see how these two do decide to play it out. I think that, obviously we know that Corviknight comes. It's going to be in the lead. So we're going to see Corviknight into Swampert lead matchup. I don't know how this matchup goes, and I guess we're going to discover it together. The sand attacks are kind of adding up, but Swampert paces so quickly that it can't be a good matchup for Corviknight, surely. Goes for the Sky Attack here. Depends how much damage this does. We do get a Protect Shield out, running the Sableye Azumarill in the back. So actually not respecting the Credilli enough to bring, respecting the Swampert enough to bring in the Credilli. So actually Rafki really wants to try and get as much neutral damage as possible. Gets the KO, the 1 shield matchup going in Rafki's favor. They didn't want to burn both shields there. And now Corviknight is actually going to be able to add up quite a bit of damage onto this Azumarill. Famous Azumarill strategy, the chip and dip, where you know that the opposing Azumarill cannot win this matchup when they're that behind on health. Even with the energy advantage, one player off does not make parity. One player off does not bring you to that same HP level quite when, again, Rafki's holding on to this extra little bit. And so Azumarill down into the red, and as soon like Rafki can, playing a little bit risky here. We do learn that Azumarill loses Charge Attack priority here, but able to hang on to the player off, and this Ice Beam will be enough to KO, which means there isn't a lot to farm, but going to see a swap into the Sableye Drapion matchup. Didn't want to give the Drapion the ability to farm, which is obviously, a terrible spot. A debuff coming through on the Sableye as well, that 30% chance to drop the defense. Gonna shield up the Aqua Tail as well. This isn't going brilliantly for Rafki here, but gonna try and play it out. The Power Gem gonna get that last shield. Oh, sorry, the last shield, I think. And another Power Gem actually coming through. So Bang Bang getting a little bit greedy here and the Charge Attack priority. We will see this take out the Sableye. Corviknight comes in to get the farm down, and somehow Rafki takes out that game, but that kind of felt like Bang Bang's game to win there. But game number 2, we do have the Corviknight into the Azumarill. We do, again, leave the Credilli at home, so we'll see if Swampert does appear. It didn't do as much as I thought it might in that very first game, because I think you need to give it some sort of advantage to actually succeed. I think that lead scenario, especially in the 1 shields, you actually are in a little bit of a tight spot. But Corviknight versus Azumarill, it's a matchup that Corviknight definitely a little bit more scared of the Azu than the Azu is of the Corviknight. And so the Iron Head is going to pick up that shield though. And now catching the move into the Azumarill, banking a move on that Corviknight, which could be incredibly handy later. And we see the swap into the Drapion. And so if you're Rafki, you're kind of like, this isn't that bad for me. Like, I'm actually relatively comfortable here. The crunch is going to come through, which obviously hurts, but if you're the Drapion, you really want a crunch debuff to go through when you are in this Azumarill matchup, because that is the sort of, big thing that clinches this matchup firm for you, because now you do have to throw another move here. There is going to be a tiny bit of HP on this Drapion, but there's no health here. Sableye comfortably gets a 1 Shadow Claw advantage. And it's the Sand Slash in the back. And with a Power Gem Sableye, you've actually got quite a bit of threat potential here. But Foul Play going to take it down. One more Foul Play is all this Sableye is going to need. Because you have that 1 Shadow Claw advantage, you also outpace the Sand Slash. And so in just the straight head-to-head, this Sableye wins 10 games out of 10 up against this Sand Slash. You need some sort of catch scenario. We see the double swap, Corviknight into the Azumarill, but really nice catch from Bang Bang. They caught the Iron Head, and now it is just a race. Azumarill gets a move here, but this isn't good for Bang Bang, because now the Sableye comes in, you Shadow Claw down, you have even more energy advantage. Oh wait, there was a move on that Alolan Sand Slash. Is this enough? The Drill Run is not enough. This is actually the big benefit of the regular Sableye over the Shadow Sableye. I maybe didn't give enough respect to that game as I should have in terms of the thought or the skill, the greatness in terms of that catch onto the Azumarill. Just, not only neutralizing all of that damage, but also having so much energy sort of there sitting ready on the Alolan Sand Slash really puts you in quite an interesting position. And so I do really like that play. But Rafki, again, running the regular Sableye with so much health still in tow as well. able to push that one to success. And unfortunately, we do actually have some bad news here because round 6 up against Mary Vion, who went 5-2. Unfortunately, Rifqi was sort of telling me like, the videos just didn't seem to work. And he uploaded them to Google Drive, and I clicked on it. And it was like, yeah, it doesn't work. I don't know what the deal is, but unfortunately, we won't be able to watch the round 6 matchups, which means we are going straight into the grand finals. Both battlers sort of coming in 6-0 into this spot. And it was like sort of, I guess, traditional Swiss in that, or perfect Swiss in that it did sort of build up so that there were, 4 undefeated battlers in the semifinals, 2 undefeated battlers in the grand finals, and leading on to 1 undefeated battler, which, I mean, we know who it is, but Yuki does end up going 6-1 and qualifies as a result with a 2nd place finish. And so a very strong battler in these Indonesian qualifiers, and a slightly different team than one we've seen so far in that it does have the Lapras, not a Pokemon we've seen hit the battlefield yet, but otherwise a relatively similar team. Both teams have the Credilli Azumarill Drapion. Yuki is running the Clodsire, and this is one of the matchups where Diggersby actually gives you a lot of advantage. And again, this is something that we saw in the South Korean playoffs, the South Korean qualifiers that, the video's up on the channel, where Charming Pori was running that Diggersby, and sort of one of its benefits is that it gives you that really good Clodsire matchup. And so in a lot of very similar team where they actually have 4 of the same Pokemon, again, the Sableye is a bit of a difference, and it is actually, round 7. It is going to be the Dazzling Gleam Sableye, so it is actually also slightly different on that front. And then it's the Skull Bash Lapras, which is a bit of an interesting one. No Ice Beam here, which means that, Credilli doesn't care too much the Sparkling Arias add up, but no Ice Beam is kind of nice. Even Corviknight, but to be honest, Sparkling Aria does pretty decent damage there as well. And then it's going to be the Sludge Bomb Clodsire as well. So again, Corviknight sort of, I guess, taking the win against that Clodsire. Clodsire is going to be tough because it feels like it's got such strong matchups into some of Rifqi's Pokemon, but such bad matchups into others. And so if Yuki brings it, it's going to be because they're making a bit of a line read, or because they think that potentially with some, the bulk of Lapras and the sort of spamminess of Sableye Drapion, maybe they can get themselves through. But a lot of very traditional lines that, Yuki could be running, we see a lot of all combinations of Azumarill Credilli Drapion, Azumarill Sableye Drapion, Azumarill Credilli Sableye, all of these Pokemon that are on both teams. We see these lines come again and again and again in the Championship Series, and let's see how they play it in the Grand Finals. Corviknight into the Credilli. A bit of a very interesting matchup where, again, Credilli is outpacing you to the moves, and the Rock Tombs are debuffing you as well. And so you kind of don't love being the Corviknight here, even though you have access to Iron Head, and this is going to be doing super effective damage. The Rock Tomb debuffs add up relatively fast. And so as much as the first one KOs, I don't think that the second one actually does net you the KO. And so Rifqi going to bank the energy and swap into the Drapion. I like this play. And because now we are going to see the Rock Tomb, we're going to see him tank it, and now the Azumarill coming in. And so again, Rifqi really wants a debuff from these crunches to succeed. No debuff on the first one, and at this point, I don't even know if his second one is going to be able to clinch it because you're so low on health. No, oh wait, was that a debuff? I can't quite tell. The screen's a little bit small on my end. We'll see depending on this amount of damage. Ooh, I'm not actually sure. But we do see the Credilli swapping in regardless. Going to tank an Ice Beam, presumably. I wouldn't call this a brilliant spot for Rifqi to be in, unfortunately. And so we're going to have to really think about how we can get through this matchup. The Credilli comes in. They've still got 2 Protect Shields in tow, but there is such little HP here on Rifqi's side. And it's the Sableye in the back. Okay, this is going to be pretty dangerous because they are almost certainly going to be burning. Okay, they're actually going to let the first one come through. I assume that some Protect Shields are coming through soon, but the Drapion attempts to catch a move, fails the catch. There is so little HP on the Corviknight. There is so little HP on this Credilli. Because we have that energy banked from before, we can throw the Sky Attack, but that gets 1 Protect Shield. Corviknight going to go down. Rifqi going to put all his hopes and dreams on this Credilli. I mean, I just don't think that Credilli can get to a second move. I think that Sableye is going to get to 1 move, get the shield, and then is going to be able to even Shadow Claw down to get game number 1 here. And actually, no, just going to go for the foul play. And yeah, really well played from Yuki, and Rifqi was sort of never in the driver's seat, to be honest with you. And so we'll see if that does change in game number 2. The Drapion into the Credilli, a much better matchup than the Corviknight into the Credilli, in my opinion. But we do see the crunch, trying to connect here. Does get the defense debuff as well, which is really nice. 2 crunches traditionally does get the KO anyway, but you're now in a position where you can almost even go for Aqua Tail. You have to burn a shield, but you sort of open up additional strategies if you want to. And so instead, we are going to see the Credilli go down, taking the shield advantage, I suppose, from that matchup. And so now we're going to see the Corviknight meeting the Azumarill, which obviously, Rafki is holding on to that Credilli in the back, but potentially just cognizant of the fact that this isn't actually that bad a matchup for Corviknight. And this is one of Corviknight's strengths, is that even when the opponent is doing super effective damage, look how a flying type Pokemon can tank an Ice Beam. And so you're able to output so much more damage. Drapion swaps in and gets some energy advantage as well. This is so much better for Rafki. The Sableye comes in the back. The shield advantage is now burned. Sableye is going to outpace to the foul plays, as opposed to Rafki getting these crunches, but you don't necessarily, like, Sableye wants to get an energy advantage, and so wants to be a little bit greedier. We see the foul play go through. Doesn't quite get the KO, though, and so this Aqua Tail is going to fire from the Drapion. Definitely, they wish that didn't happen, because now you're in a position where Rafki can let this go through. They can shield the next move, and no matter what happens here, I think it's almost just checkmate here. Okay, hang on, hold. Yuki making brilliant catches here. But I think that Sableye, it's not going to survive long enough, unfortunately. And yeah, that is GG's 1-1. Final game of the series, of the tournament, to find out who goes 7-0. And we're starting off with a Credilli mirror match. Looks like Rafki does win Charge Attack priority. And again, this is something we saw earlier in the tournament. When you're the Credilli that loses Charge Attack priority, you're not happy, Credilli. This is not where you want to be at all. And so Rafki is just going to keep on clicking Rock Tombs. And it's one of those matchups that even if the opponent catches, all of a sudden, they're locked into a debuffed Pokemon, and so you don't love it. So we now see the swap into Drapion. I really like that play, because now we're going to see the Azumarill come in. If the Credilli stays in, you're going to get that full Poison Sting down and have energy to go into the next matchup. The opponent doesn't want that, so they swap into a bit of a neutral matchup in the Credilli here, into the Azumarill here. And so now the Ice Beam going to take Drapion down into the red. There is that Diggersby hanging on in the back for Rafki. So Rafki is sort of making a bit of a read as to what he might see in the back. Obviously, if it's something like a Clodsire, this is just GG's. There is nothing the opponent can do, but you never know what is going to pop out. It is going to be the Drapion. This is another good matchup for the Diggersby, but importantly for Rafki, he cannot let this Drapion get too much energy. And so he lets the Credilli go, recognizing this, bringing in the Diggersby as soon as possible so that you can tank this Aqua Tail. You can go for he's going for the Fire Punch bait. This is such a gamer play. Gets the shield as well. There is still 1 shield remaining on Yuki's side. Going for the Fire Punch here to try and get the KO. Gets both shields. And now you're in a position. You shield the Credilli. You might be able to get I think you have to go for the Fire Punch here to secure the KO against the Credilli. And now you just need to get to a Scorching Sands on this Drapion. Drapion is going to get to its moves very, very quickly. It is going to, you do outpace to 1 Scorching Sands as opposed to 2 Aqua Tails. But if Drapion had even a time... Oh, goes for the Crunch! Okay, hang on. We have double moves here. The Crunch doesn't go through. No debuff. The Aqua Tail doesn't KO the Diggersby. And now the Scorching Sand's going to go through, get the KO on the Drapion. And with a 70% chance of winning that game, Rafki does get the win. If Yuki's Crunch debuff goes through, and that is actually such a high IQ play from Yuki. They recognize, look, if I just go for an Aqua Tail, if I just land an Aqua Tail, it will not KO. That Diggersby will survive. And so, instead, I'm going to go for the Crunch debuff, the 30% chance that your defense is lowered so that my next Aqua Tail will KO. I mean, that's just such a high IQ play. And, just finding I know I'm up against the wall, but I know I have 1 win con. I'm going to roll the dice and see how it goes. Unfortunately, the dice didn't go Yuki's way today, but that doesn't mean that Rafki going to be able to take out the big 7-0 in the Indonesian qualifiers and, of course, progress on to the Indonesian playoffs in a few weeks' time. And so massive appreciation to Rafki for sending these battles through, and absolutely good luck to not only Rafki, but all of their opponents as well, and all of the other, total of 16 battlers. There's definitely some names that people know, like Find Panic hiding out in that top 16. Unfortunately, Aussie legend Rob Drogo was competing in this tournament. He did go 5-2, but unfortunately, the 5-2 tiebreaker was really tough, and so barely didn't make it into the top 16. With that Bastiodon, it would have been really nice to see. But with that said, again, massive shout out to Rafki. Let me know what you think about Corviknight. I think in this video, like from the Corviknight battles we saw, one of its benefits obviously is being able to soak up that damage, which is something that we see time and time again. I mean, it's a benefit of Lapras, it's a benefit of Azumarill, but I think one of its differences is that in these matchups where it feels like it should be losing, it still outputs so much damage just because of how long it stays around, even though it is a little bit slow. And so let me know if you've had any success with the Corviknight. It's a Pokemon that I'm certainly interested in, and so I was pretty interested to see Rafki's battles. But with that said, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one if you do want to see more content like this in the future. And of course, thank you to my Patreons and YouTube members as well for supporting the channel. But yeah, with that said, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.